Contractors.com, Tennessee's trial attorney.
And here we go.
It was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome to the program. We have a national champion, and why I think that makes Tennessee's season look much, much different. Also, the Vols' odds on where they might fall in next year's national championship hunt are out. What are Tennessee's chances of winning a national championship in 2025-26? I think those numbers might surprise you. Also, a little bit later in the program, we might be joined by a very special guest. I have not heard back from him, but we're looking at that. We'll talk some recruiting. Did Tennessee fans fuel Ohio State's title run? Arguably so. And then Harrison Bailey. He was a popular name in Knoxville. He's now going to be a Gator. Also, this day in Tennessee sports history, stat of the day as well. And should Tennessee basketball apply some load management? Here Caleb goes, getting loaded up for the postseason because he doesn't care about the regular season. But, Caleb, you might have a point. Also, does the national title mean the Big Ten is better than the SEC? It's hard to argue otherwise. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume dealer. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Dave. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Ready to dive into it. Before we get to my contention that the way Ohio State finished the year, which included a national championship last night as they beat Notre Dame, your thoughts on how everything played out with the playoff. And I know you're not ecstatic about it, and neither am I. But I like to do it this way. A to F, how would you grade the first run at a 12-team playoff? And with that, do you grade it on any sort of curve, since the first year is always going to be the hardest?
No, it's an F-. The first year should at least be exciting because it's the first year. The novelty wasn't even cool. It was an F. It was the most boring. It was worse than I expected it to be. I thought the playoff would be exciting, but would sacrifice the regular season. It sacrificed the regular season, and it ain't even exciting. It was a dud. I mean, and I said this from the start. Dave, you've covered college football for a long time. Most of the time, in your experiences covering college football, a 14 playoff, hell, even the BCS National Championship back in the day, more often than not, there was one team a level above everybody else, usually up to maybe 4. No more than 3 or 4 that were just on a separate level from the rest of the college football world. Am I right on that? I would say
Fair.
maybe even 3.
No, I can go with that.
So as you know, there were blowouts all the time in those games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did people think that by expanding the playoff, you wouldn't just get more dud blowouts? College football is not like the NFL. The parity's not there. Now, maybe I will be proven wrong in about 5 years as NIL really sorts itself out. But as of right now, the parity's still not there in college football. And that really showed in this playoff. Ohio State's talent was just so much deeper than the rest of the field. And also, people thought the expanded playoff was going to give more chances to lower level teams. No, what it actually did is give more mulligans to more talented teams like Ohio State.
Interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and put it up there because it's going to be today's tough question. How would you like to phrase it? Because I view things from Tennessee's perspective, and I tend to agree with you, the playoff. I'm not quite as harsh on it as you, but I will say this. I think that the way Ohio State made their run, it makes Tennessee's season look better. That had Ohio State gone in week number 2 second round and gotten beaten, you would have been like, what in the world's going on there? But now it looks different to me. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it totally looks different to me too.
Okay.
So let's just ask it. Does Ohio State's run make Tennessee's season look better?
I can't think of a better way to phrase it than that. It is time for today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now, take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Does the way that Ohio State's season ended, which is a national championship and double-digit wins in every playoff game, change the way you view Tennessee's 2024 season? It does me significantly. I came away from the Tennessee-Ohio State game thinking that, man, Tennessee is really, really short on talent. I don't believe that as much anymore. Now, I think that Ohio State was more talented, but I think they followed the Michigan model 2 years ago, and that is keep the players they've got. And listen, there's a big difference. Guys, I'm telling you, I've seen freshmen go to sophomores and sophomores go to juniors, and they can look like different people, like all together. So to have guys that are 22, 23 is a big difference over 19 and 20, which is what the past two national champions have had. So, Caleb, how much, I know it has to change it some, I would think. How much does it change that Ohio State game now in the rear view? And if you want to read about it, it's on offthehooksports.com. Go ahead.
I'll be honest with you, and you guys know I've been the most negative Nancy on covering Tennessee and calling the season a disappointment. It drastically changes my view. Ohio State didn't just maintain their talent. Dave, if you remember, they loaded up in the they spent $20 million in the transfer portal on having just more talent than everybody else. And let's reset for a minute. Okay, so Ohio State, up until the Michigan game this year, let's take the Michigan game out. What's their resume, Dave? It's a 1-point loss on the road to the #1 team in the country, Oregon.
Yes.
There is absolutely no shame in that. They were clearly the best team until that Michigan game. That Michigan game was a fluke. It's obviously a fluke. It's a rivalry. I think it was Michigan's national championship, and Ohio State was thinking about other things at the time. So the mentality was totally different. Now let's get to what happened with Tennessee. Tennessee catches Ohio State at Ohio State's angriest. Now, I know we're going to talk in a minute about fans packing the horseshoe. It was still, by and large, a road game for Tennessee, just not as much of a road game as it could have been. There were still more Ohio State fans in the stadium than Tennessee fans. So it was still a road game for Tennessee overall. Now, Ohio State, when you look at what they did, when you look at how they beat Tennessee, and then how they beat Oregon, and then how they beat Texas, and then how they beat Notre Dame, and then you look at Tennessee's schedule and you say, you know what? This Tennessee football team went 10-2. They had an upset loss. Pretty much every team in the college football playoff had an upset loss, by the way. That in case we forgot, right? I mean, Georgia had an upset loss. I just mentioned Ohio State had an upset loss. Everybody but Oregon had a bad loss on their resume, and Tennessee was just one of them with Arkansas. Outside of that, the only thing that kept Tennessee from advancing was getting the worst draw in the first round of the college football playoff because of the quirky seeding. There's nothing to say that Tennessee couldn't have made it all the way to the national title game otherwise. And I also thought about this recently yesterday, Dave. Tennessee caught Ohio State at their angriest. Tennessee, all three of their losses, they caught teams at their most desperate. Okay,
go ahead. I'm interested.
They caught Georgia at their most desperate. Georgia was a win or go home situation, and Tennessee was playing at Georgia, and I think we both agree Georgia still has more talent than Tennessee overall. Put those things together, Tennessee was they really had no shot in that game. Arkansas, whatever you think of Arkansas, they shouldn't be good enough to beat Tennessee, and Tennessee should not have lost that game. However, at the same time, Arkansas was good enough to hang with elite teams, and they were at their most desperate in that moment because they wanted Sam Pittman to keep his job because the players do love Sam Pittman. So their 3 losses.
Which is always a red flag for a coach when the players just absolutely love you. Go ahead.
True.
Ashley says, bring back the old intro. Ashley, work with me because I got a new board and the new intro hasn't even worked correctly yet. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the point I'm making is when you factor those things in, when you factor in that Tennessee's quarterback was, okay, Nico was not as ready as we thought he'd be early, and the fact that Tennessee's a key part of their offense, Lance Hurd, was playing half the year on a sprained ankle, put all those things together, and the season doesn't look as bad. And then I step back and look at perspective for a minute. Josh Heupel takes over a program that was 3-7, that was down in the dumps, that was losing everybody to transfer portal, that was the most disastrous program in college football, and he goes 7-6, 11-2, 9-4, 10-3, and I'm like, okay, has my criticism, having covered Tennessee knee deep, knowing that they went all in on 2024, did I lose perspective covering this team to a certain degree? And I think I might have.
Interesting. All right, let's update the poll question, which is today's tough question, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. So, Caleb, give us the poll question.
Does Ohio State's national title run make Tennessee's season look better?
All right, here we go. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
All right, so what do the voters say so far?
The voters so far are saying 88%. Yes, it makes Tennessee's season look better.
Wow. It makes it look a lot different. Steve says with another path that Tennessee would have gotten deeper. Go ahead and let's do this. Pull up the college football playoff bracket and let's run through it. And let's take a look at each team. The only way I can do it is say neutral site. But let's say neutral site, which I know is not where the first round is played. Would they have beaten those teams in our estimation? All right, so pull it up and let's run through them real quick. Let's not belabor this, but let's go ahead and get into it, and then give me your thoughts on the message board as well, because the AP poll is coming out today, and I think Tennessee is going to be top 15 with the way they lost. I don't think that they're going to be top 10, but I come away from the season thinking they're a top 10 team, but I know how AP voters are, which ain't grand. And they don't know what they're doing because this is the first year of a 12-team playoff, so it's all screwy. All right, so, but let's go through the bracket real quick. If Tennessee plays Team X, do they beat them on a neutral site?
All right, so if Tennessee plays Clemson, do they beat them on the neutral site? Yes.
Yes.
Is that a debate? Okay.
No.
So, by the way, I disagree with you. They're going to finish top 10 because I'm going to run down these teams.
I don't doubt that they should, but I don't trust the AP voters. So we're on the same page.
If Tennessee plays SMU, do they beat them?
Yes.
Yes. If Tennessee plays Indiana, do they beat them?
Yes.
And by the way, I want to point this out because, Dave, you know this as well as I do. One of the laziest things people do, and this is why the BCS was so stupid when they had it back in the day, margin of victory in terms of numbers, like, oh, Tennessee lost by 25 and Indiana only lost by 10. I'm like, you got to look at the flow of the game, right? A 10-point loss can look like a way bigger blowout sometimes than a 25-point loss.
If you watch that game last night, I mean, Notre Dame came out with all their best stuff on the first drive, take a 7-0 lead, and then Ohio State said, let's go ahead and put the foot to the hammer, and they're up 21-7 before you know it.
Yeah, and then it's 31-7 by the third quarter. Yeah, you're right. It's like it's. I agree. So I mean, and then Notre Dame fights back in the end, but Ohio State was clearly on a different class. So there's that. By the way, I want to point out making Tennessee look better. I didn't even mention the fact that Tennessee didn't have their best offensive weapon when they played Ohio State that day. That's just another way to say they looked even better. So, okay, now let's go here. It gets a little trickier here. Tennessee, Notre Dame, who they just played yesterday. Dave, talent-wise, I lean Tennessee. I think Notre Dame was a little more experienced. I think their chemistry. I think Tennessee's more likely to make a mistake to cost them that game. Is that fair?
Yes.
Tennessee, Penn State. I mean, James Franklin in big games.
I still like Tennessee, but not as much as I did considering what they did in the playoff. But
right.
Neutral side, I would take Tennessee.
All right, Tennessee, Texas.
I would take Texas.
I'd probably take Texas too. Now, what about teams that got buys? Hold on. Okay. Tennessee, Arizona State.
Tennessee, yeah, definitely.
All right. Now let's keep going. Tennessee, Boise State.
I like Tennessee.
Yeah. Tennessee, Georgia, Tennessee, Oregon. They probably lose those two, which is
Yes.
fine. Now, let's think about this. Now, let's consider the fact that if they did the seeding the way they should have done it, Dave, and not with these, the top 4 are conference champions, get the auto bids, and, all of that stupid stuff they did. Okay, let's think about this for a minute. Tennessee was number 7 in the college football playoff ranking. If Tennessee had been seeded properly and not this stupid gimmick they did, they would have played SMU in the first round. What do you think they would have done to SMU? At home, they would have played SMU at home.
SMU.
Yeah, they'd have hammered SMU. Now, where things are a little tricky, they probably get bounced out in the second round because then they would have played Georgia in the second round. However, they would have played Georgia without Carson Beck. And Gunnar Stockton probably wasn't ready for the moment.
Fair.
So if they get to the second round, they're playing Georgia. That is a very winnable game. Let's say, hypothetically, they beat Georgia in the second round. Get to the third round, they're probably playing Texas. Again, okay, but at that point, they're in the semifinals losing to Texas. I'm just saying the path is much better if the seeding is the way it should have been. And here's another point, and I want to point this out. And I know I'm throwing a lot of things out, but I don't know if you know this, Dave, but Penn State lost to Minnesota. Or I'm sorry, they beat Minnesota by 1 point earlier this year. It was one of the luckiest wins they had. There was a fluke late drive that cost them. If Penn State loses that game, Tennessee gets the 8th seed, and they're playing 9th seeded Indiana in the first round at home of the playoff.
Okay, interesting. Then things look a lot different.
A heck of a lot different. This all has to do with the quirky way the college football playoff was seeded. That's what this all came down to when you look at it. When you consider the fact that Tennessee had to play the national championship team, the most talented team in the first round, and then they played them on the road, and then they lost their best player on the opening drive of the game. They do look, I have to defend them a little bit. They look a heck of a lot better.
No. So at the end of the day, what teams would you definitely rank ahead of Tennessee, and where would you have them if you had an AP vote?
All right. So at the end of the day, what teams would I definitely rank ahead of Tennessee, and where would I have them if I had an AP vote? All right. Let's have some controversy. Let's have some fun with some controversy. I'll rank Oregon ahead of Tennessee.
Now, I wish that Oregon and Ohio State had played in the championship game. I just don't feel like Notre Dame was a top 5 team still. But anyway, I would rank Oregon, Georgia, Texas for sure. And then
Ohio State, obviously.
Oh, no, Ohio State, yeah. So that's 4 teams. Who else you got?
I mean, I'm just by default, I will put Notre Dame ahead of Tennessee because Notre Dame beat Georgia. That's a win that you got to give them credit for. Yes. So I'll put Notre Dame ahead of Tennessee. That's 5. They'll probably put Penn State ahead of Tennessee, which would be laughably stupid, but they probably will. That won't be laughably stupid, but I just wouldn't do it. The laughably stupid ones are going to be when they put, like, if they put Boise State or Arizona State ahead of Tennessee, because like, well, they made the second round on a first round bye. And so they put them ahead. So, but I'm looking at it now, Dave, and I think Tennessee ends up looking at these rankings now. I think they finished the year ranked number 7, which is exactly where they came into the college football playoff. And Dave, the 6 teams that finish ahead of them are the 6 teams that are ahead of them now. Now, my hot take, and you probably disagree with me on this, I would put them ahead of Texas and consider putting them ahead of Penn State. Who Texas beat this year?
Well, you know what I do? I fall back on the eye test. I think that Texas had their stuff together offensively much better than Tennessee throughout the season. So, no, it's fair. If you want to look at resume, that's very fair. But, that again, they had their offense humming. Tennessee had offensive tackle issues, and it looked like they had, a first-year starting quarterback at the helm.
Possibly. I think probably eye test Texas does probably beat Tennessee. I just think Tennessee has a better resume. Now, I'll say this. Yeah, I'm going to say, do you think they would rank any team that didn't make the college football playoff ahead of Tennessee in the final polls? Do you think that's possible? Do you think they'll rank Miami or Ole Miss ahead of Tennessee?
Yeah. I think that's where it gets screwy. And then I think some teams are going to fall more than they should that lost in bowl games because they're like, we didn't make the college football playoffs, so bleep this, and we're just going to go out there and enjoy the bowl festivities. I've been around a lot of those teams. I hope you're right for Tennessee's sake, but I got a weird feeling they're going to be around 12. Steve says on the message board they should be 5 or 6. Matt says 7. Let's go ahead and adjust that. Matt says we weren't a top 6 team, y'all. No, I tend to agree with that. Michael says Ohio State had to get through a juggernaut of a playoff schedule to win the national championship. Nobody is arguing that. Dan says Ohio State is proof the more you spend on NIL, the better you are at winning a championship. Well, with the caveat of keep your guys. That's why I wanted to be sure and report earlier that Tennessee has changed their direction. And we did that over the weekend. Tennessee has changed their direction from going out and getting big-time guys, big-time names, a lot of stars, to keeping the guys they have. That's why you shouldn't be overly concerned about the lack of activity and a positive notion incoming of the transfer portal. So, Caleb, I will say they're going to be 12. I don't think it's right, but I'm basing that off AP voters, not what Tennessee or other teams did this year.
You're probably right. And by the way, I know we're calling out AP voters, but let's give them a break and not act like so many other people don't overvalue stupid things. How many quarterbacks have you seen become NFL draft picks because they played good in their bowl game? They can play mediocre the whole season, but have a good bowl game. And NFL scouts are like, oh, they were so good in the bowl game. I got to take them. And most notably, Jamarcus Russell. Y'all look up Jamarcus Russell. No one was considering him a number 1 draft pick until that Sugar Bowl where he lit up Notre Dame in a meaningless Sugar Bowl game, and then scouts fell in love with him.
Yep.
And there that happens.
Hound Dogs of Knoxville, champions look good in orange, hdknoxville.com, hdknoxville.com. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And then Caleb keeps me on my toes. I wasn't really sure about this take, but I'll give him an opportunity to defend it. Why Tennessee fans helped Ohio State win a national championship. What the H? And it's brought to you by Ted Russell, Ford Lincoln, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer.
What the H?
Wow, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb Calhoun, I'm going to let you throw it out there. Your take in a very well-written column, but I'll go ahead and state before that all well-written columns aren't exactly on point. So you and I disagree a little on this, but it was a great column. So go ahead and tell me why why Tennessee fans why did Tennessee fans lead to an Ohio State national championship?
And to your point about well-written columns, I read conservative and liberal columnists whose writing I like, even if I disagree with them politically. I believe in reading both sides, and I like EJ Dion and George Will, both, conservative, liberal, but they're both really, really good writers. So, and I like to see the best case made for a side. Now, to your point, Tennessee fans set Ohio State off and put them in motion to want to go on a blowout run in this tournament. Now, that doesn't mean Ohio State wasn't good enough to win it all anyway. That doesn't mean they wouldn't have beaten Tennessee anyway. But what happened with the Tennessee takeover of the Horseshoe, I think added massive amounts of fuel to an already lit fire with what happened in Michigan and Ryan Day being on the hot seat. So let's recap what actually happened. Ohio State loses to Michigan, a fourth straight year. They get into a fight at midfield because Michigan wants to plant the flag at the midfield logo. An Ohio State legislature member wants to pass a law banning flag planting at midfield of stadiums after games. Everybody's laughing at Ohio State. Then the playoff starts. First take, and everybody's like, Ryan Day's got to win a natty or he's fired. Not like go far. He's got to win a natty.
Which is so absurd. I mean, what if you get to the national championship game and you lose on a last-second field goal? Well, you're out, Ryan.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, he's got to win a natty. The players are the best. They're the best players in the country. They rally behind their coach. Amidst all this happening, the week of the game, what happens? The Tennessee takeover happens. Players are already trying to get hyped up to play behind their coach, and they see Tennessee fans saying, we're going to take over the Horseshoe. Ohio State fans literally are like, please come take over the Horseshoe. We don't want to watch our team play because we're so mad at them for losing to Michigan. Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork comes out and says, guys, please don't let Tennessee fans take over the Horseshoe. The day of the game happens, and everybody's like, look at all these Tennessee fans here. Kirk Herbstreit said it was an insane road presence. Kickoff happens. 41% of the stadium is Tennessee fans. 41% of the stadium. More people from Tennessee bought tickets on the resale market than people from Ohio. Even though Ohio is a bigger state and the game was in Ohio. They see all of that. They're already angry with everything that happened. You don't think that hacked them off even more and made them say, we want to not just play for our coach, play to show up all the media that's turned on us, and play to make them night miserable for all these Tennessee fans that showed up. They want to show up the fans who willingly turned on them during that game when they know they have the best players in the country. That set them off. And by the way, and I'm not done on this because there's one person, because Kirk Herbstreit last night confirmed it, Dave, and I just want to point this out. Last night, I got the exact quote. They were talking about this. Chris Fowler said that frigid night against Tennessee when the volunteer fans tried to take over the Horseshoe, that began the run. And then Kirk responded, I think that was the turning point as far as the psychological aspect of this team. Looking up in their stadium and seeing all that orange, I think they got back to that locker room. From what Ryan Day and a lot of the players have told me, they basically drew a line in the sand from that moment on. When they won that game, they restored their confidence and belief that, hey, we can go on a run here, and they've come together. You either split apart when you go through something like that, or you come together. And they've definitely come together. The floor is yours.
You make a great argument, and obviously Kirk Herbstreit, who got a little emotional last night about the Buckeyes winning the national championship, has insight that nobody else has. Basically, when trust me, when you have ESPN next to your name and you call and ask for an interview, you typically get it. And especially if you're Kirk Herbstreit, which is a whole nother level, he knows as much about that program as probably Ryan Day. So anything that comes out of his mouth is absolutely golden and truth when it comes to Ohio State. I had not heard that quote, so I'm flip-flopping completely. I'm on your side. I think it was a major factor. I just changed live here. What spurred Ohio State's run is a poll question, just simple desire, which they started the season with, the Michigan game, or Tennessee fans in the Horseshoe. Right now, Michigan game, 53%. Tennessee fans in the Horseshoe, 27%, which I'm now a part of. Just simple desire to be a championship team, 20%. So, Caleb, you got me. I think that you flipped me before, but not on anything that I felt pretty strongly about coming in. I hadn't heard the Herbstreit quote. So, right now, the Michigan game, 53%. Tennessee fans in the Horseshoe, 27%. Just simple desire, 20%. And a couple of things that Tennessee did that probably also wasn't it wasn't the best idea. There was talk about in all Waffle Houses in Columbus play Rocky Top. I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that?
I saw that.
And feel free to pile on if you've got one as well. Not wearing the shirts. I don't know whose idea that was, but that's basically a middle finger to the other home team. Now, if you do that at home, it's different. And let's say you're playing Southern California and they come to your place and it's freezing. Let's say it's in Knoxville and they're used to warm weather and you go out there with no shirt, then it looks different. It feels different. It's like, this is our home. We're the cold weather team. Stick it, Trojans. Sounds weird. All right. So, but the way it turned out, it just seemed like a flipping the bird to Ohio State fans and Ohio State's team. And listen, I love Tennessee's fan base and I love the passion of it, but sometimes it goes too far. I thought it went too far, for instance, with the Greg Schiano stuff, but as it worked out, they didn't hire him, and I thought it would have been a terrible hire for way different reasons that were out there. So there are times where Tennessee's fan base, you right there, tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but there are times that Tennessee's fan base is so passionate that it works against them because of social media. And I'm not telling you to back off, because that same passion makes you buy tickets. That same passion makes you make donations. So I'm not suggesting anyone back off. And I'm sure other schools have fans that adversely affect them via social media as well. It just is what it is. And the Buckeyes handled it in a professional manner, took it the right way. And before you know it, that game's pretty much over. So, yeah, Tennessee absolutely via social media, with the shirts off, with everything that happened leading up to that game, buying up tickets, I think added some motivation to Ohio State's fire.
And I want to say this, major kudos to Ohio State's mental toughness, because Kurt's right. That can tear a team apart or bring them together, because it's twofold. We all watched The Last Dance. How many times did Michael Jordan take something personal and it set him off and then he just went off, right? He did that all the time.
A lot.
As you know, Dave, though, there are other people that are built differently that they would wilt beneath the pressure, wouldn't they?
Yes.
One of the most notable NBA series I ever watched was the year the Pistons won it. They beat the Pacers as the underdog in a 6-game series. I'll never forget Rasheed Wallace saying, Indiana's not going to win game 2. We can't let them win game 2 if we're going to win this series. So we're not going to let them win game 2. Don't worry. And Indiana went and lost that game. How do you wilt beneath that pressure? Indiana freaked out when Rasheed Wallace was like, nope, we got them. So taking that into account, I think Ohio State was the reverse. They clearly were mentally tough enough to say, we're going to come together. Excuse me. And they did. And it worked out. And it part of that is somewhat coaching to keep your team together. I mean, when pressure mounted on Tennessee in the past, during the Butch Jones years, they wilted. And so I think that when you come together and when you have the right mentality, when you let these things motivate you and bring you together, and you have the most talent in the country, you're going to steamroll everybody. And that's what they did.
Yep. Now, Ashley asked or posted something. I'm not following Ashley. Tennessee was actually the last of the 3 teams to take their shirts off. Were there did Michigan or any other teams not wear their shirts?
They might have. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But
Give us a little bit more there, Ashley. I'm having trouble following you, but I'm intrigued, because obviously I watch a lot of football, but I don't watch Ohio State beginning to end and pregame and all that stuff. I got to tell you something you need to know. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles, and it's not even close. New and used. I'm currently in the process of buying a Bronco. I can be picky, so I'm waiting. Andy and Nick White have me covered while I decide on the Bronco or the Bronco Sport of my choice. He gives me a cell number. He doesn't bug me. He's just waiting for something, because I'm bad about color and all that stuff. I want the right thing to come in. I think I'm going to go with the Outer Banks Mall. The good news, plenty of time to decide. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, and they have anything you could possibly imagine. The #1 volume Ford dealer. And whether it's partnering with local businesses or sending someone home in their first car, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln loves to be a part of special moments in East Tennessee. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, the exclusive vehicle provider and studio sponsor of Off the Hook Sports. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, Off the Hook Sports.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible for camping, tailgating. The options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong?
Guy
At
was a
NFC,
lot of
we offer
job,
top-notch
but
weight
this
training
one-
and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Ashley's doing some research for us. It said SMU was the other team that apparently didn't wear their jerseys. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Let's forget for a second the motivational factor. How about just the being cold factor of the not wearing jerseys in pregame warmups? Is that, I mean, you're just cold. I
don't think that has an effect, but here's where I think cold does have an effect. I think when things go south for you when it's cold, it starts to feel a lot colder. So I think
there's no question about that. You feel the cold much more when you're losing, no question. All right, it is time for This Day in Tennessee Football History, as This Day in Tennessee Football History is brought to you by our fantastic friends at Quality Tire Pro, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com, QualityTirePros.com. Tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports and Dave Hooker said hello. What do you got, Caleb?
I'm kind of mixed on this day because there's two. Can it do twofold? Because there's 2 legendary things that happened on this day, Dave. And I'll let you pick which one was a bigger deal.
No, I'm going to start picking pop culture stuff. We're going to have some fun with this. So I've already got a plan there. So what do you got?
All right. So the first one, 4 years ago today, Tennessee made the move that changed its fortunes forever when it hired Danny White as athletic director.
Wow. Now I'm not going to be able to I'll beat some of yours in the offseason. I guarantee you, because the pickings get a little slim. I'm not going to beat that one.
19 years ago today, Bruce Pearl's first year at Tennessee. The basketball Vols shocked the undefeated and second-ranked Florida Gators at home, and fans stormed the court after Chris Lofton intercepted a pass and threw it to Dane Bradshaw, who laid it in. That propelled Tennessee into the top 25, where they stayed the rest of the year, and it showed that the program was on the rise under Bruce Pearl. I don't know if you remember that game. But
I do. Pretty good. That's pretty good stuff. Also, I want to mention that Tony Jones, who joined us last week, will be a weekly part of the program. He was on Pearl's staff, both at Tennessee and at Auburn. So we're excited about growing some things with him. And I'll go ahead and tell you that he knows basketball better than anybody. And he will tell you things that if you, by your own devices, my devices, because I'm more of a football guy, especially, that I wouldn't see for weeks. I would eventually see, but Tony Jones is going to join us each and every week, and we're looking forward to that. So, all right, my pop culture one, and let's make this the bulk question. I'm going to cough for a second, so say something. But Caleb and I are both battling illnesses. I've had the flu. I don't know what Caleb's had. I think he started smoking Winston's, like 2 packs of Winston's a day, because he's been coughing for 3 weeks. All right.
I'm much better now.
You sound fantastic. Okay, let's make this a poll question. So as you might know, Donald Trump was inaugurated. So we got JFK, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and FDR inaugurated on this day in previous years. Kennedy, 61, FDR, 4th term, 45. Won't be surprised if we see 4 terms out of a president now. And this is also in 37. FDR was inaugurated his 2nd term. 81, Reagan inaugurated. 69, Richard Nixon took office. So who is the better president? I refuse to let you weigh in on this. I will mute.
I'm not putting that poll up. Nope, we're not going to have debates over who the better president was on our show. I refuse to do that. I will say this, however you feel about presidents, it's very mysterious when they die in office, and 2 of them died in office.
Okay.
One of them almost died. Actually, 2 of them died in office that you named. One of them was shot and almost died.
Okay. All right. Let's turn it to Tennessee basketball. But this day in Tennessee sports history, again, is brought to you in part by our good friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. Since Caleb is being a spoil sport, you can go ahead and put your thoughts on Nixon, FDR, JFK. That's a wide-ranging group.
Okay, how about this? How about who was the most transformative? I mean, I don't even think that's a question, because FDR probably changed the country more than any of the other ones, significantly so.
We can move on. Dan says no political stuff, and I was having fun with it. Sorry if I went a little off kilter there. All right, so Tennessee basketball. I want to turn to them. They'll play Mississippi State tonight, and Tennessee is a basketball team that I believe is finding itself. And I wrote over the weekend that Chaz Lanier being the go-to scorer 90 to 100% of the time is not going to work out. They've got to figure out plays for Igor Milicic and Darling Stone Dubar. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree.
Okay. So I really feel like it should be like 30-30-30. Like you go, let's say 30-30-30-10. So I think that you should go to Igor 30% of the time, and this will keep teams off balance. You Dubar 30% of the time, Chaz 30% of the time, and then you've got stuff that's worked up for like a backdoor screen, Kai Ziegler, 10%. So that's just kind of roughly where I'm putting it. I know it's not that easy, but your thoughts on Tennessee basketball?
I think Tennessee basketball needs to apply load management to this season. And I know you guys are going to call me crazy on that. I know the world is going to think I'm insane. Dave right now in his mind is like, you can't do load management for basketball. Are you not, Dave? Are you not already thinking that?
Not really, because it's worked in the NBA. I mean, I hate it because I'll give you for instance, we went to see the Nets and in Atlanta because I wanted my son to see Kevin Durant, and I didn't buy the ticket till like the day of because I didn't know who was going to play. So I hate it, but I probably wouldn't argue with you on it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I got some I've got some data to back this up, by the way, that I think is going to kind of be interesting to you. So up until this year, so over the past 3 years, let's say that 2022 through 2024, the Big 12 has had the number one ranked conference RPI every one of the past 3 years. They've had a grand total of one Final Four team in the past 3 years. The last time the SEC had the number one RPI, Dave, was way back in 2003. They didn't have a team make the Final Four that year. Everybody flamed out. Everybody lost to a lower seed that year. This is actually kind of a common theme throughout college basketball if you go back through history. More often than not, the conference that is considered the most loaded conference during the regular season, everybody laughs because they have the worst flameouts in the NCAA tournament. I'm sure you've remembered covering those narratives, right?
Yes.
They're not on solid ground. They're not perception. That's reality. Do you remember back in the day, I mean, the Big East, ACC, whenever they're considered the deepest conference, they have the worst flameouts. Here's why that's relevant. I think they're connected. The grind of a tough conference schedule, I think, wears teams down for the NCAA tournament. Let me just talk about the NFL playoffs real quick. The NFC North, you know about the NFC North this year, right, Dave? How loaded they were? Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit all making the playoffs. Detroit, Minnesota being the two best teams probably in the NFC.
Yes.
They all lost their first playoff game. I don't think that's a coincidence. It's no doubt that the SEC is by far the toughest conference in basketball this year. Every night is a grind. Tennessee has yet to play every team they've played this year is either a ranked team or a team with a winning record that they're facing on the road. And they're doing it again with Mississippi State. The brutality of this schedule, with them only having 7 or 8 guys they can run, is putting them in dogfights every single time out. It's going to wear them down. Truth of the matter is, they're going to make the NCAA tournament with a winning record. That's all they really need, honestly. And I think at this point, because of that, it's time to start resting guys on nights. It's time to pick a night. Chaz Lanier, you're off tonight. Zakai Ziegler, you're off Saturday. I think it's time to start doing that and maybe sometimes rest them all at once, maybe once every 4 games, and put some walk-ons in. I'm sorry. That
breaks my heart for you to say it. It breaks my heart for me to agree. I couldn't coach that way, even if in the back of my mind I thought it was the best way to a national championship. Maybe I'm old school like Rick Barnes. And question, Darling Stone, who's that? Now, I'm talking about that everybody gets up to speed. And I realize we're approaching late January and Dubar had a personal issue, and I understand he's not up to speed, but I still think he'll be one of Tennessee's. Ziegler's a distributor, but I still think he'll be one of Tennessee's top 3 players aside from Ziegler. Is that fair?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, if he's not, then this discussion is moot, right? I mean, if it's just if Igor and Chaz are the only 2 guys driving the train, then it doesn't matter. So, because they need more, and we've seen that with Chaz. Now, when you go into this, you have to say this: you're putting yourself in a position to not get a good seed in the NCAA tournament, because I know you also believe they should throw the SEC tournament. So,
well, the SEC tournament won't help their seeding at all anyway. But yeah,
okay. But it can hurt. I mean, I think the first few days can hurt.
Tennessee got the 2 seed. Tennessee just got a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament last year, and after losing the first game.
That's true. They're incredibly lazy and don't want to redo the bracket. All right, so let's forget the SEC tournament. So, how many games could this cost Tennessee? How many losses? And I think you would agree that you don't want to be in that 8-9 game. You'd much rather be in that 2-14 or 1-16 seed game. So that you don't want to slip in that 7-8, 6-10 range, even 5-11. There's an upset there every year.
I think so. You don't do load management tonight. I think when you're playing ranked teams at home, that's where you get your quality wins. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes.
So I think you when you play Mississippi State tonight, and when you play Kentucky next week, and when you play Florida next week, and when you play Missouri next week, all at home, all top 25 games, you play your starters. But when you visit Auburn on Saturday, the number 1 ranked team in the nation, yeah, backups, play all your backups. you're probably not winning that game anyway. Rest everybody. Rest everybody. And I'm going to pour me some coffee while I say it. Sit back. If you're the players, pour some coffee like this, guys, and just sit and watch.
Okay.
Rest everybody.
Okay. But
it's not going to be a bad loss, and you're probably not going to win the game.
Okay. Dylan says not an SEC play. We're already thin on the bench as well. So who are you going to play? Does Zach Turner have any eligibility remaining?
Wow, that's a throwback. You're going to play your walk-ons. Here's who you're going to play. All right, I got the list right here. You're going to play Ben Lindmeyer and Gavin Paul and Grant Hurst and Campbell Duncan, baby. Let's go, okay? They're going to be your starters. I'm dead serious. Take the L at Auburn. Gun to your head. It's Tennessee beating Auburn on Saturday at Auburn.
Quite possibly. You're dismissing it a little too easily.
No. At Auburn, you rest everybody. At Kentucky, you rest everybody. At Oklahoma, I play that game because I think Oklahoma's a winnable game on the road. But at Auburn, here's my load management games. And I'm dead serious. These are the games where I would do load management. This Saturday at Auburn. Saturday, February the 11th at Kentucky. Saturday, February the 22nd at Texas A&M. And Saturday, March the 5th at Ole Miss. And then I'd throw the SEC title game. I'm dead serious. I would do load management for all of those games. And
wait, you throw the SEC title game, so you want to stay in it till Sunday? You lost me there.
No. Oh, sorry. Throw the SEC tournament. I'm so used to talking football with the SEC
okay,
title.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, if you get Sunday, you might as well win it.
Yeah. No, throw the SEC tournament. So yeah, this Saturday, rest at Auburn. Saturday, February the 11th, rest at Kentucky. And here's the thing. You're getting more rest later in the year, so you're going to get fresher because then you have at Texas A&M and at Ole Miss. So, yeah, 4 games where I would bench everybody. I wouldn't play a soul, okay? And I would sit there and I would say, I'll take the 4 L's. So what? You're probably not winning any of those games anyway. You just lost at Vanderbilt. You also got blown out at Florida. There's games you're just not going to win, guys. Auburn's one of those games this year. Take the L, focus on winning your home games, win what you can. You take those 4 L's, you'll probably finish the season, I'd say like 12-6 in the SEC. 12-6 in the SEC with 7 overall losses, 8 if you talk about the SEC tournament. That's enough to get you in the 4 range given the schedule this year. So okay. get the 4 or 3 seed.
But let me ask you this. That all sounds good, but do you believe that Rick Barnes, who is 70 years old, will actually do it? Fire protection needs Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Okay. I would have said previously, like just a couple years ago, there's no way Rick Barnes Old School would do this. There's no chance. Caleb, you're insane. He's never going to agree with you. He thinks you're crazy. He's listening somewhere because I know he watches the show every day and he's like, Caleb's still crazy. It wasn't just the cold medicine. But I think that it's a possibility with what Rick Barnes said about Chaz is going to sit on the bench because he's paid to shoot. That's forward thinking, okay? There is a chance that Caleb was right and Tennessee essentially threw the SEC tournament last year.
There's not a chance.
Okay.
There's not a chance.
That would be forward thinking. And Caleb,
that is factual.
Caleb was ahead of the curve. And I think we've seen, now turning to football for a second, Michigan and Ohio State be ahead of the curve with load management, with keeping players instead of doling out a lot of money via NIL. I would have trouble doing this in my heart, but my head says you might be onto something. I want to see comments from the message board. And then we had one comment from Tennessee Smokey that said Bruce tried this at Auburn with some success. I don't recall that, Caleb, but is this something you just came up with or you've seen another team do?
No, it's something I came up with. As a matter of fact, I thought about it with Ohio State winning the national title even more. I thought about it over the weekend after the NFC North flameouts in the playoffs. And I thought, how could the NFC North be such a deep division all year and then just flame out in the playoff? And I thought, I think they beat themselves up playing each other all year, honestly. And I really do think that happened. And then I thought, Ohio State losing to Michigan, that benefited them, did it not? I think they didn't have to play in the Big Ten title game, gave them a break. I have to be honest. By the way, thanks for the correction, guys. I just noticed Dave never fixed his name.
That's your job, but go ahead.
Oh, wow. Okay. I would, but I want to address what Matt SS said, because he said, oh, so throw all the important games. Matt, that seems like all the important games because every single SEC game is a ranked game this year. You're forgetting all the times they're playing at home. I'm not saying throw any of these home games. I'm saying every home game you show up for. But here's the question. Dave's asking whether or not Rick Barnes would do this. I would like to think he would. I don't think he would go this far, Dave. He's playing Zakai Ziegler 34 minutes a game right now, and he's playing Chaz Lanier 30 minutes. So he's still living by that annoying philosophy of you earn your playing time. And I keep trying to say, it's not about players earning playing time. It's about your starters earning rest so they're fresh during the NCAA tournament. And because here's the thing. I think you would agree with me on this. If you've managed your roster right, depth is really overrated once you get to the tournament. Everybody shortens their rotation in the postseason. Everybody.
Yes.
They want to run their best players. You can't, but the problem with Barnes is he shortens his rotation the entire season. And that causes problems in the tournament. I'm saying do it. Load management, baby. Don't throw those 4 games. Just rest your starters in those 4 games. That's all I'm saying. Maybe you'll win one of them still. Okay, Tennessee did. We're talking about a program that Tennessee did beat Kansas with like 3 walk-ons one time about 10, 12 years ago. So rest your starters at Auburn. That's a loss anyway. Rest them at Kentucky. That's a loss anyway. Rest them at Ole Miss and rest them at Texas A&M. Rest them those 4 games. And then rest them in the SEC tournament. Don't play anybody in the SEC tournament. I mean, just, don't even show up for the SEC tournament. Just forfeit that one, okay? Be like, I don't want to be here.
All right. Timothy is so absolutely disillusioned with Caleb's take that he shared this and paid us $5 for that. We appreciate it. Well-spoken like an analytics loser. Boom.
Yeah, there's a problem with that. The analytics losers are the ones actually winning in sports right now. So, the teams that employ analytics. I'm saying this. Load management is coming to college basketball. I don't know when. I don't know where. I don't know how. But with the way the NBA is doing it.
I'm sorry, we got the Sanctuary who agrees with you. The whole point is to be peaking in March. How in the world can you do that? Taking games off. Peaking isn't rested. It's playing your best ball. I'm going to defend Caleb for a second. I think having more energy at the end of the season is more significant. Now, let's do this. Let's give this backdrop. In the NBA, there are times in which they'll play a game, fly at night, and then play the next night. It's called a 2-for-2 night or a double night or whatever. They've got a term. The players have a term.
Back-to-backs.
Yeah, but I thought it had another. But anyway, the union is actually fighting to not have those anymore. The load on them, speaking of load management, you would agree is much greater in the NBA than it is any college basketball player. Plus those guys are 20, 21 years old, so their bodies should be able to handle it better, right?
Yes, and not only that, the playoffs are so long in the NBA. I mean, you got to win 4 7-game series. So it's not like the NCAA tournament where it's, just 6 games. That's not to say that it's not the advantage, though. That's not to say that it's not a model college basketball can't follow. Now, let me tell you guys this up front. I'm not a fan of load management. I think it's ruining the NBA. But it's the fault of the NBA, and it's the fault of college basketball for setting up a system that has totally devalued the regular season. And I told you guys, I don't like devalued regular seasons, but we're here. So because we're here, I think college basketball teams should employ load management. Because, Dave, the truth of the matter is seeding is very much arbitrary in the NCAA tournament. There's no real advantage to being the higher seed. What advantage does the 8 seed have over the 9 seed? They have the exact same path. There's no advantage.
Well, but wait, that's apple. You're comparing apples and apples. Apples and oranges are a 1 or 2 seed as opposed to being an 8 or 9 seed.
Until
the second round,
college basketball gives home court advantage to the higher seed in the NCAA tournament, I'm going to call for load management, and I think they should start doing it. Because without the advantage of home court advantage of being the higher seed, then being a higher seed is just a number by your name. So I think college basketball teams, you're going to see it, will start employing load management, and it's going to be disastrous for the sport.
Okay. We got some posters that are having fun with this term. Let's be gentlemen here. We have ladies and perhaps children that like to watch each and every day. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's #1 volume dealer. It is time for the stat of the day. Stat of the day is unbelievably great each and every day, and it's brought to you by our friends at the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Go to hemphousechat.com, hemphousechat.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. All right, Caleb, stat of the day is?
Tennessee basketball has 13 games left. Guess how many are against top 25 teams?
9.
Boom, nailed it. 9.
And I didn't
9 out of...
I didn't cheat. All right, so
By the way, you want to know what's intriguing about that?
I do.
No, 9 is such a majority that when the founders did the Constitutional Convention and the 13 colonies had to ratify it,
I actually remember this, and you know way more history than me. But
they determined that if 9 of the colonies ratify it, that's enough of a majority to make this the law of the land.
Yeah,
that's what they determined.
All
so
right.
The founding fathers thought 9 was basically a unanimous majority, and that's how many top 25 games Tennessee has left. And you guys don't think Tennessee should be out here resting starters with such a brutal schedule.
Yeah. Jeremy says, sorry, Dave, I was locked in under my church account. Fixed it. That's fine. Maybe I could use an invite to your church. Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. It's been a rough couple of months. banksandjones.com. The show represented, again, by Banks & Jones as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's #1 overall volume Ford dealer. Stay tuned. More coming up, including something I'm looking forward to digging into particularly, and that is, guys, we may have to admit the Big Ten is just better than the SEC. This is Off the Hook Sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Jeremy Invod, appreciate it. I got a couple I got to knock out first. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's #1 Ford volume dealer. All right. We're going to switch it up a little bit, and we're going to go to bank on it. And Tennessee is a good bet to win the national championship, not in baseball, as someone referred to on the message board, but we're talking about, of course, football. So it is time for Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Tennessee, I believe, is, given the odds that just came out, a good value bet in winning the upcoming football NCAA championship, 12-team, 18-team, 28-team, whatever it is, college football playoff. So give me the odds. We talked about it earlier this morning. What are the odds for those that don't know?
Yes, so Tennessee, FanDuel's Futures Championship odds are out. Excuse me, sorry, guys. And Tennessee has pretty good odds to win. Not good odds, but let's just say
gooder
odds. I'm sorry.
Gooder odds. Gooder odds.
Gooder odds.
No, just gooder. Anyway, go ahead.
Better odds than they could have. So depending on where you look, it's plus 1,800 or plus 1,600. So ESPN Bet has Tennessee at plus 1,600. That is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is 8th best odds to win it. Now, they are tied for 8th best on FanDuel to win the SEC. They have the same odds as Clemson on FanDuel. So depending on which way you go, Tennessee either has the 8th best odds solo or they're tied for the 8th best. Now, and again, these are a little bit different, but let's just go by FanDuel for the start. So
let's stick with FanDuel. And let's just go FanDuel.
That's true, because ESPN Bet's out here losing money every day anyway, because they're all so bad.
I mean, literally, if you are a big gambling person, take advantage of ESPN right now. I know somebody doing it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Ohio State leads at plus 450 on FanDuel. Number 2 is Texas at plus 650. Number 3 is Georgia at plus 700. So Texas, Ohio State, Georgia pretty much are leading the way at that point. Oregon's in the top 4 too at plus 650. And then, so sorry, I need to remake this. Ohio State's 1 at plus 450. Texas and Oregon are tied for 2nd at plus 650. Georgia's 4th at plus 700. Penn State's 5th at plus 850. Notre Dame is 6th at plus 1200. And Alabama is 7th at plus 1600. And Tennessee is 8th at plus 1800.
Okay, I'm going to reset the poll question, but kudos to you. Most people agree with you. Should Vols use load management talking basketball? We have 56% saying yes, 44% say no. So let me ask you, because we were all on board with Tennessee at, what were they last year, Caleb? Do you remember their odds that about this time of year? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I think they were a lot. I think they were plus. Yeah, they were plus 2,000 last year. Around this time. So they're better. They're a bit better this year.
Okay. So 18-1, is that a good bet?
I think that's a great bet. Considering, and by the way, a part of this is me rerouting what I thought just yesterday after what happened with Ohio State winning the national title and kind of thinking about my perspective.
You stole my point, you jackwagon. Go ahead.
I apologize, but yeah, no, I think that's a great bet. And I think it's a great bet also because of the teams ahead of them. So do we want to go down the teams ahead of them and see if Tennessee should be ahead or behind them for the national title?
I would absolutely love that.
Alrighty. So one Ohio State, no question there. They should be ahead of Tennessee, right?
Yes, no question.
Yeah, and by the way, Ohio State is I told you guys they're one of the 3 premier jobs where any idiot can win as a head coach. They're like LSU. Ohio State, just like LSU, 3 national titles this century with 3 different head coaches.
Especially without Jim Harbaugh there, because I think we would agree that in a battle of wits, Harbaugh is going to beat Ryan Day. I don't care what happened last night.
Oh, I totally agree. 100% agree. All right, so that's one. Number 2, Oregon. Should Oregon be ahead of Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3, Texas.
Yes.
I'm with you on all those, particularly with Arch Manning stepping in at Texas, who I think we all agree is going to be better than Quinn Ewers. Number 4, Georgia.
Yes.
Yep, can't debate you on that. Here's where things get a little bit tricky. Penn State, number 5, plus 850.
There is no way in creation. I don't care if I came out of the womb in a Nittany Lion uniform that I would bet on them to win a national championship unless it was like 50-1 and I could get a big payday. There is no way.
I 1000% agree. I would never bet on them to win it, and I certainly wouldn't bet on them over Tennessee. So I think that Tennessee should be ahead of Penn State. Notre Dame plus 1,200.
Well, I mean, gosh, they made it there. I'm not going to pretend to know who all's coming back. So, I mean, I guess they should be ahead of Tennessee. But again, I would probably take Tennessee's roster. Well, I don't know. They lose a lot. Yeah, I would say Notre Dame should be ahead of them. And it turns my stomach to say so because I didn't think, not that I hate Notre Dame. I hate it when my predictions are wrong. I thought Marcus Freeman was going to be an abject failure, but good for him. He's not.
Here's the thing. 14 players for Notre Dame have already declared for the draft. 2 more are expected to declare. That's a lot to replace. So you know, at the same time, I think their schedule actually does get a little bit more difficult. It's not fully fleshed out yet, but they have to visit Miami next year. They do host Texas A&M. A Texas A&M team I think will be better. They visit Arkansas, which could be dangerous. They have USC, Navy, and Boise State all at home. I feel like they're more liable next year to slip up more than once. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Particularly with their ACC schedule not set yet. Because for those who don't know, Notre Dame's independent, but they have a contract with the ACC to play like 7 ACC teams so they can be in the ACC in basketball. That's how that works. So, all right. After Notre Dame, so I would probably agree. I would probably take Tennessee over Notre Dame, honestly. Now last, and this is going to be one that we'll have a fun debate over, but Alabama versus Tennessee.
All right, bank on it. Should Tennessee be ranked or rated ahead by Vegas of when it comes to a chance to win the national championship? This is a good time for a mid-roll ad so I can think about it. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
Caleb, I think Tennessee should have better odds than Alabama to win the national championship. You have a more solidified quarterback position. I think that Alabama has lost a lot. I think there's a real opportunity, a real path in which Kalen DeBoer is a very, very good coach and will go somewhere else and have success, maybe even win a championship. But just the turmoil and the changeover will be too much to overcome in Tuscaloosa. So I think Tennessee should have better odds than Alabama to win a championship.
Here's why I disagree with you. Alabama, Jalen Milroe gone is a benefit to Alabama. Guys, they're going to be better next year. They have 3 options for their next quarterback. All of them are a better fit to run Kalen DeBoer's offense. All of them. For those who don't know, Kalen DeBoer kept Jalen Milroe the starter for one reason and one reason only. He didn't want to lose the team because the team loved Jalen Milroe. That's the only reason he kept Jalen Milroe as the starter. Otherwise, he'd have ditched him last summer. Now, there's that. Alabama gets Tennessee at home. Dave, honestly, that could be the deciding factor for maybe the last SEC team in the college football playoff next year. And it's in Tuscaloosa because Alabama visits Georgia and South Carolina, but their non-conference schedule at Florida State. Do we really think they're losing to Florida State?
No.
There are other non-conference games: Louisiana Monroe, Wisconsin, and Eastern Illinois. If they're smart, they try to get out of that Wisconsin game, but they get all 3 at home. Then they have their conference schedule. They have Vanderbilt at home, at Missouri, Tennessee at home, LSU at home, Oklahoma at home, and yes, Auburn on the road, which can be difficult. But I mean, I see like when you look at that schedule, you're looking at Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Auburn are the circled games. I guess maybe LSU, but like they get LSU and Tennessee at home. So then you have Georgia, South Carolina, and Auburn all on the road. I got to think they're going to win one of those games. And with that in mind, I don't know. When I go to look at Tennessee's schedule, I just mentioned they have to visit Alabama. They get Georgia at home, but they get them at home early. I don't know if they're going to be fully ready to go with Georgia. They have to visit Florida, and I know, Florida had a strong finish to this past year, but on top of that, Florida also, Tennessee at Florida is just never a good situation for Tennessee. I don't care what the records are. I would favor Florida in that game. And
I understand that, but I'm beyond that with the current coaches in play. Now, if Heupel goes somewhere or they replace Billy Details, then maybe I change my mind. But as long as those 2 cats are in, I'm not adhering to the old Florida Tennessee lore.
They needed overtime to beat Florida this year. And then last year they lost to Florida on the road. They keep finding ways to make Florida more difficult than it should be. With that in mind, looking at the schedules, I would say Tennessee has an easier SEC schedule than Alabama now that I'm looking at it. So that could favor Tennessee, but Alabama getting Tennessee at home and having the right quarterback, I think is dangerous. Now, I want to go a few below Tennessee real quick. LSU plus 2,000. Tennessee, LSU.
I would probably take LSU in that situation over plus 1,800 for the Vols.
I probably would too. Particularly, I don't know if you've seen them. They're dominating in the transfer portal.
Yeah,
I think Brian Kelly has gotten a level of anger over Notre Dame humiliating.
It's not his anger. What I'm hearing from talking to people around college football, covering different teams, is that you know the way they do it in the NFL. They say you got to fire this coach or you got to fire that coach. You got to change your offense or change your defense or you're out. Okay.
Yep.
Well, the new way of doing it is they're going to donors and they're saying, "Hey guys, we think we've got the right coach." And it's not just at LSU, but I've been told this is at several other schools. And I think that if Tennessee doesn't have success, it's going to happen next year to the Vols, not in 2025, but 2026, is you're going to donors and you're going to say, we're going to pay up for this dude. And then we're going to make a determination. In other words, our rejoin says Vegas. You're basically at that point where you're at the end of the night. You had $2,000. You had 100. You've got 100 left. It's been a bad night. So you're going all in and you're going to churn this thing and see what comes out. And ultimately, you'll know if it was your night to win or not, or it was your coach to lead you to a championship or not. So I don't think that's happening at Tennessee. I think it will if the Vols don't have more success this year than they did last year or don't make the college football playoff. But I do think LSU is one of the schools that's happening at, from what I'm told.
I'm in full agreement with you that I think that's what's happening. So then there is this, by the same token, after LSU, 3 more teams real quick, but Ole Miss plus 2,300.
No, I don't believe Ole Miss under their current strategy of trying to win with the mercenaries that are out there in the NIL world. I don't believe that's ever going to work.
Fully agree. 2 more Texas A&M plus 3,100, South Carolina plus 4,000. Don't sleep on Texas A&M being better this year, but
I'm not going to sleep on Texas A&M, but South Carolina, you might as well just, churn your money up into some Carolina mustard sauce.
Dave doesn't believe in Beamer ball.
I don't.
Okay, wait.
I didn't believe in Marcus Freeman either, so maybe I'm wrong.
All right, what you taking? Beamer ball, Butch ball, or Buzz ball?
I guess I'd have to take Beamer ball. I mean, he's had more success than the other two guys.
Has she had more success than Butch Jones?
Well, I don't know. The 12-team playoff, he would have made the 12-team playoff once, right?
Mm-mm.
Would he? No.
No.
Okay. Well, they were knocking on the door. I don't remember, it wasn't around back then. I don't know. Would you take Shane? Let's just make that a poll question. Would you take Shane Beamer or Butch Jones? I think I'd take Shane Beamer. What?
I mean, I would take Shane Beamer too, but like Shane Beamer has an IQ of 2, so he has a higher IQ than Butch Jones. But I'm sure you remember the Buzz ball branding, right? With Buzz Peterson when he was.
Oh yeah. I totally remember that.
Who misses Buzz ball?
No. All right, so the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. So we want to play hot or cold on this subject, and that's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Go to cityheatandair.com.
Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Exclusively on the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so give me the top 10 teams, and we're going to go hot or cold on these cats, and we're going to run through this. So real quick, hot or cold on their number. I know we kind of did that, but it doesn't fit the format of the show, so we're changing things up. Go.
All right. Ohio State.
Hot.
Yep. Texas.
Hot. I think Steve Sarkisian eventually wins a championship there. It might be this year.
Totally agree. Definitely possible. Oregon.
Hot. I think they'll win a championship there eventually.
So I'm gonna go not with Oregon, because can they do it a third year in a row with the quarterback? I mean, from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel. Now they're getting Dante Moore. He transferred from UCLA. I'm not hot on Dante Moore, so I'm gonna go not hot right now.
Okay, that'd be cold.
Yes, that'd be cold.
Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
All righty. Georgia.
I'm hot there. I think getting rid of Carson Beck was kind of a good thing.
I'm with you. I'm hot on Georgia.
Yeah.
Penn State. Old James Franklin, baby.
Oh, God. When he came up to me, he goes, "Boy, you are from Knoxville. You're a huge Tennessee fan. You even got orange hair." So I'm going to say cold.
Yeah, I'm going to say cold, particularly with Drew Aller coming back. He announced he was coming back after the bowl game loss, and I think a lot of Penn State fans are like, "Oh, really? We got to have him back at quarterback." All right, Notre Dame. Not to make it, but to win it.
And I love Matt filling in there, too. Keep it going. Notre Dame to what? What are the odds?
To win it, plus 1,200.
I'm cold. I'm not going to back off. But until Marcus Freeman proves me wrong, I'm the opposite of his parents. I just don't believe in him.
I had a column almost ready to go that I didn't write yesterday because Notre Dame didn't come back and win it. But I'm going to say hot. Can I tell you why? Just real quick on Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
In the NIL age, they're keeping all that playoff money for themselves. They're about to be able to spend a lot more on athletes. And here's the other thing. The academic requirements aren't as much of a drawback for them anymore because they don't have to stack rosters 3 or 4 deep because no roster's 3 or 4 deep. So ironically, they're very uniquely positioned for the future.
All right. I still think they're going to have some serious issues when it comes to getting an elite coach because you don't control 2 things. You don't control admittance at Notre Dame and you don't control discipline. And I think that's why Marcus Freeman was the best they could do. You can't go to Steve Sarkisian and say, we're going to give you $20 million to come to Notre Dame. The only chance they have to hire a proven elite coach, in my opinion, is Urban Meyer, who's always wanted to be there. And they're not going to do that because he likes to dance around with girls at his nightclub while he's married.
This is a take John Adams would totally disagree with me on, but I think we've overvalued the importance of having an elite coach in college football for the past 40-something years. I think more often than not, the team that's won the title had the most talent, not the most elite coach. And I think Notre Dame's positioned to get the most talent. Again, Ed Orgeron won a national title, and so did Les Miles. So that's my go-to like trump card on you don't need elite coaches to win titles. So I'm actually hot on Notre Dame because of that. All right, keeping it going. Tennessee, hot or not?
At those odds at 18, I'm hot. Hot.
That's hot. Clemson, hot or not?
Not.
I'm not.
Or cold. Why are you messing up the?
You're right. Hot or cold.
It's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. I gotta have a talk with Caleb.
One more.
One
then
more.
We'll sing some Katy Perry.
Oh, I'm not gonna
You're
sing
hot,
Katy
then
Perry.
you're cold. You're yes, then you're no. You're
It's
in,
brought
then
to you
you're
by
out.
City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
All right, what's the last one?
LSU, hot or cold?
Given what you told me about the NIL portal and given what a source at Baton Rouge told me about what I reported earlier, that this is kind of like Brian Kelly do this, I will go hot. I think they'll have a great season, or a good season at least, one that'll keep Brian Kelly there. But I'm not lumping them together with the Sarkisians of the world and the other guys that we mentioned. Like Oregon, I think will eventually win a national championship because talent has been spread out. So, we mentioned a lot of teams I think that'll eventually win a championship. I don't believe Brian Kelly will. Well, I guess that would mean I'm cold because then I would be throwing that money away, right?
Yeah, it would, but I disagree with you. I'm hot. I'm hot on Brian Kelly being able to do it. I think that this is Brian Kelly's Ryan Day moment with Ohio State last year, where Ohio State basically was like, we're putting it all on the table. You better go win us a title.
Interesting. That's an interesting take. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I'm headed down to Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Kingston Pike. They're on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. If you want to stop in at lot after lot and waste precious time, that's an option, but why? They have the incredible selection you won't find anywhere else. That's why they're the number one Ford dealer. That is Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Man, you can go to tedrussellford.net. You can go to tedrusselllincoln.net to check out their fantastic vehicles that are available. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up, we might have to say the Big Ten is better than the SEC, and revenue sharing has some administrators in a lot of colleges a little uncertain about their future. Well, good, because they pay a lot of guys like $200,000 to walk around and do nothing. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's number one volume dealer. This is Off the Hook Sports.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio. East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome back. Why, if you're a college athletics administrator, you should be a little bit concerned, and really very concerned. I go back to when Dave Hart was hired, and he's not going to be remembered as a great athletic director. However, he did the hard stuff. He got rid of an awful lot of people, and he took it too far when he tried to get rid of the Lady Vol logo and name. That was pretty stupid. But he did clear out a lot of space financially for the Vols to do other things. He was the hatchet guy. He was the guy that was hired to come in and get rid of all of these assistant athletic directors, combine the women's. Now, okay, we'll get into this, but he was the hatchet guy. That's where he is. And I think there are some administrators that need to be very concerned at Tennessee. We'll discuss that. But first, the national championship, the way everything shook out, are we having the conversation now that the Big Ten is better than the SEC? Clearly, or just for now? I'll make that the poll question, because I don't think any of us think that the Big Ten is going to be better forever, or do we? Caleb, how would you compare the Big Ten and the SEC? I'll set up the poll question. Go. By the way, an update. Our last poll question was Tennessee at 18-1 is a 50-50 among our fans, a great value bet. So 50% say, yep, great value. 50% say, no, not wasting money again. And I certainly hear you. So let's reset this one. And that is, Caleb, how much better is the Big Ten than the SEC? And if significantly, how much longer will that be the case? What say you?
Yeah, and I want to put out some context for a minute. The Big Ten just won back-to-back national championships with Michigan and Ohio State. That's the first time a conference that was not the SEC did that since, ready for this, Dave? Ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
The Big Eight did it with Nebraska winning it both times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that doesn't even count because Nebraska won it both years. So it wasn't like there was anything special. It was just the Big Eight themselves were special. To take it back even a step further, the last time two different teams from the same conference won a national title, I'm literally scrolling and I can't find it. I think the SEC is the only one to actually have that happen where two different teams from the same conference won the national title in back-to-back years. That just doesn't happen. You have to go back pre-modern era of college football to look back in that. So that's a really big deal. I think it was, okay, here it is. It's Minnesota in 1960 and Ohio State in 1961. Minnesota has no business claiming the 1960 national title anyway. So that's where that comes. Now, that's an impressive feat to
Lou
the Big Ten.
Holtz years, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Is that Lou Holtz years, by the way?
I think that's a little bit before Lou Holtz.
Just
But
joking. Methuselah Holtz. Go ahead.
I will say this. I think the SEC, I think the Big Ten, because of NIL and the transfer portal, where now the value of team chemistry and building, that camaraderie outweighs the raw talent because you can't build the depth. That puts the Big Ten on the SEC's level at the top tier teams. Is that fair to say? Like, You're not entering an era anymore where Georgia and Alabama, as you say, big nasties or war daddies, are just so much deeper than an Ohio State or Notre Dame or Michigan where they can't compete. That day is over in college football, isn't it?
Yes. You're never going to see an Alabama like run again. And I go back to that. And listen, guys, if you want to know the secret to the Alabama run, would you like to know the secret? It's called close practices. And it had nothing to do with what they were running and keeping from reporters. It had to do with the army of analysts that would run onto the field when the media was gone. And they had a coaching ratio like the NFL, not college football. And that's exactly why Alabama did it. Butch Jones tried to copy it. That's why they brought in a lot of guys like Terry Fair and some other guys. That everybody has tried to do it since. It's a strict NCAA violation, but Alabama got away with it and won, I think last I checked, 58 national championships.
Okay, there's two other.
Yeah, I was just going to, because 85 players and 10 coaches is a ridiculous ratio, but go ahead.
It's a terrible ratio, and Saban complained about it all the time. But by the way, I just want to point, there's two other reasons Alabama did what they did. One, Alabama recruited better than anybody else. It's two obvious ones. They recruited better than anybody else. And two, they had one of the few smart coaches in college football. Those two things kind of outweigh everything else too. But yes, the analysts were a big thing.
But if you had to pick, he was smart and he did what he did and he got around the fact that the ratio was so bad. So it's chicken or the egg. But I think that's what he unlocked, that he was like, wow.
But that's part of his smarts, isn't it? To realize.
And then when you have some success, the NCAA doesn't want to bring you down because you're making the SEC a ton of money. So are they going to?
Exactly.
Yeah. So they'll protect who fills the coffers. Trust me.
So, okay. So getting back to this point with everything we're talking about now, the Big Ten at the top is going to be on the level. But Dave, as of right now, and I'm not saying this is going to be for the future, and I don't think it will, but as of right now, I'm disagreeing with you that the Big Ten was better than the SEC the last couple of years. I still think the SEC was better. And I got some data points to throw that out to you. And I'll just give an anecdotal example. We both agree that Texas got the easiest possible draw you could get playing in the SEC, right?
Right.
They still played by getting the easiest possible draw you could get in the SEC. In the regular season, they still played 4 top 25 teams and 6 teams that were bowl eligible. So by getting the easiest possible draw in the SEC, they got 4 top 25 teams and 6 teams that were bowl eligible. Contrast that with Indiana, who got the easiest possible draw in the Big Ten. Indiana played 1 top 25 team and 3 teams that were going to be that were bowl eligible. This just isn't. I'm sorry, but it's just not the same thing. I think that the difference with the Big Ten and the SEC is still with the SEC. Once you get past 3, once you go to like 5 to 11, it's just not. I'm sorry, the SEC is still winning in a big way. They're still deeper. Now, caveat.
But at the end of the day, I'm going to talk in hyperbole here just to try to make a point, okay? At the end of the day, would you want 6 teams from your conference to make the college football playoff? Let's say 6 teams, 6 of the 12, and they all lose in the first round. Or would you rather have 2 teams make the college football playoff, or 1 team? I'm speaking hyperbole. I like extremes sometimes to see where people stand. So 1 team and they win it all. Not financially, just how your conference is viewed. Which would you prefer?
I think conference viewed. I think you take the 6 that make it. I'm sorry, I do.
We're talking about Ohio State today, and we're not talking about the Big Ten being better than the SEC if Georgia had won it all.
Yeah, but Dave, let's go back to the 90s real quick when Florida State was a top 5 team every year and won 2 national titles. No one sat there and said the ACC was some elite conference because of Florida State. All right, no one accused them of that.
I hate it when you bring up a good point that negates my point, but that's okay. I'll give you that.
So what I guess where I'm at with this is that the SEC is still much deeper than the Big Ten. But here's the point I'm trying to get to. That's not lasting past this year. The minute that Big Ten TV revenue comes in, guys, and I'm still insisting this, the Big Ten is going. Ohio State just won a national title by spending $20 million on NIL money. Do you realize every Big Ten team is about to rake in $20 million more than every SEC team? They're about to rake in Ohio State's NIL budget more than the SEC because of the TV revenue. What do you think they're going to do with that money? They're going to buy talent.
Spend it on players, right?
They're going to spend it on players. I'm sorry, but like the whole I'll ask you. You've covered recruiting, Dave. I think, would you agree that beyond program prestige and coaching, the two most obvious ones for getting coaching is probably number one back in the day for recruiting. Proximity to home was a top 3, right? Players wanted to stay at home if the program was right, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
How much further behind NIL is proximity to home now?
How much further behind? Way behind. It's not even a factor. You can jump on a flight. You've got the cash to do it. And technically, I think the schools still have to pay for a certain number of trips back. No, you kind of had you kind of held players by hostage back in the day. I've told these stories before, but Fred White's told me that players would try to save up $20 to get on a Greyhound and get back home. And a lot of times not having that cash made them remain on the team, and then they were won over when they had some success. So that's why people are jetting now, literally, because it's nothing to drop a few $100 on a plane flight. Heck, probably these guys are just spending money and flying first class.
Exactly. So let's take a couple of teams real quick. Nebraska, pretty much a blue blood program historically, but they've fallen off. When this Big Ten revenue comes in, Nebraska goes into Georgia. Georgia says, hey, you guys the Bulldogs say, you guys get to stay in state. Nebraska says, I'll give you $300,000 more and I'll pay for your flights home whenever you want to go home. Where are they picking?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I can't argue with you there.
So my final conclusion is that the SEC was still better than the Big Ten even this year because it was deeper. But it will not be deeper in 2 years because of the stupid TV contracts that Greg Sankey allowed.
Very interesting. I can't completely argue with that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We're going to redirect. Forget the revenue sharing. We've got some breaking news that we're going to go ahead and get to. We appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're in any sort of legal situation, Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I'm telling you what, other attorneys will settle, not T. Scott Jones. He'll go to trial and go to trial for you. Banks & Jones. All right, breaking news coming up. Stay tuned.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
The AP poll is out. Tennessee is number 9. So we'll go ahead and make that the poll question while I run things down. Tennessee just drops 2 spots from the last poll. And I will give the AP voters credit. I thought Tennessee would be 12 or 13 because of the way they lost. But I think they weighed it correctly, especially now that Ohio State has won a national championship. And yes, they thumped the Vols, but that was at home. And they proved to be the best team in the nation. So set up the question. Tennessee at number 9, too high, too low, just right. Number 1 is, of course, Ohio State. Number 2 is Notre Dame. I think kudos to that. I didn't know where Notre Dame, or would they fall a couple points or 3 or 4 because they lost by double digits. I probably would have put them behind Oregon, to be real frank with you. But Oregon is number 3. Texas is number 4. Penn State number 5. Georgia at 6. Arizona State is number 7. Boise State number 8. Tennessee at number 9. Indiana at number 10. Other SEC schools, Ole Miss is 11. And then Alabama is 17. South Carolina 19. Missouri 22. And unless I miss one, that's all your SEC teams. So let's do the porridge game. Too hot, too cold, just right. Brought to you by City Heat and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Insanely too low. Flat out insanely too low.
Okay.
Because of the 2 teams ahead of them. This is what upsets me about the AP poll. They lazily voted based on how far you win in the college football playoff and didn't factor anything else in. Let's think about this, Dave. Why are Boise State and Arizona State ahead of Tennessee?
Well, I guess that's hard to say. Again, I think Tennessee was on that primetime game, and I don't care what anybody says. The AP voters don't watch every game. There are a lot of guys that, they've covered football for 30 years. Are they really watching every single game? But the Tennessee game was on prime time. I don't think that helped.
It doesn't.
I think everybody saw the beginning of that game and made their assumptions about Tennessee and Georgia Tennessee and Ohio State before halftime.
Okay, but here's what upsets me about it. Tennessee was ahead of Boise State and Arizona State in the AP poll before the playoffs started. All 3 teams lost their first playoff game. Tennessee to the national champion. But you move Boise State and Arizona State ahead of Tennessee. Why? Because technically, Boise State and Arizona State were higher seeded teams in the college football playoff because of the stupid conference title seeding automatic bid thing. So technically, they went to the second round. Here's what AP voters just did. Boise State and Arizona State were in the second round, and Tennessee only made it to the first round, so therefore Boise State and Arizona State got to finish ahead of Tennessee, even though they all lost their first playoff game. And it was a stupid auto bid. This is why, and I got to be honest with you guys, this is why the voting and the polls and the AP voters have lost their power on college football.
Totally, completely. As of last night, everything changed.
They have been lazy voters for 45 to 50 years. When the college football playoff started, Dave, they didn't need it. If you think about this, they didn't need a 13-team committee. They could have just done the AP poll voters and said, let's do that. They didn't want to because they know how stupid and lazy and how much politicking the AP poll voters do. It's an embarrassment to the sport now. And I don't just mean AP voters. I mean, in general, media voters have totally destroyed their credibility in a sport, by the way. For those who don't know, and I bring up this history, go back and read about the history of Grantland Rice. Nashville guy, really his writing, his incredible writing helped propel college football to what it is. The media had pull over college football like any other sport. But then I was at SEC Media Days 2 years ago, Dave, and 3 people voted for Vanderbilt to win the SEC. That was just, maybe I'm crazy, but you should take your votes very seriously when you're in this. And
I completely agree. I think I go so far as to say I've said this before, there are 2 fan bases, 2 media contingents that will wear their school colors that they cover 2 games. And it's Kentucky. There's only 3 or 4 of them last I was there, but Kentucky basketball and Alabama football. I really believe that you should go up and you should pat them on the shoulder and say, hello, Larry, I think it's time you leave the press area.
I agree. I totally agree.
Accidentally, this means something when you're in the locker room. I accidentally wore Mississippi State colors. Somebody else packed my clothes, and Tennessee hammered Mississippi State. And you remember Steve Caldwell?
Yeah.
Yeah, defensive ends coach. He goes, what the hell are you wearing?
That's really funny.
I was like, Steve, I didn't pack my clothes. I'm sorry. I'm a child.
When I was at the Beacon, Dave, funny enough, you're going to laugh at this. I covered, I believe it was the Tennessee-Arkansas game in 2007, where Arkansas was at Tennessee. Tennessee shut down Darren McFadden and Felix Jones in one of the best prepared games John Chavis ever had. But there was late in the game. I forget his name.
Didn't work so well the next year, but anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But there was a guy working at the Beacon with me, and he had a buddy he went to high school with who was playing on Tennessee, who was kind of a walk-on, but got on the field late and made a nice play. And I mean, he just did this, like kind of pumped his fist to see his friend do well. There were two people that kind of went over and talked to him. I remember how big Neyland Stadium was in Tennessee. Was like, you don't cheer, you don't let it be known that you're rooting for anybody.
Oh no. I'll give you two worse ones. So when I was with WTK, I didn't know this, but I one time cheered and I realized that nobody else did, so I knew to stop myself. And then there was an auxiliary press area for the 1997 SEC championship game that I might have taken up a lady to there with a credential. And we cheered, and we were told by the SEC, no, that is not acceptable. And I think I've told this story before. When I walked out of Peyton Manning's last game, the Orange Bowl, I took off my orange and I said, I can't do my job unless I'm objective. And I think it's proven out that I was right. I mean, does it help our show and everything for Tennessee to win? Certainly. But if I get on here every day and I'm a Tennessee homer, or they're media that are negative on the other side, if it hurts my feelings that Tennessee lost, it's going to affect my reporting. If I want Tennessee to win, it's going to affect my reporting. So you can't do that. Sorry to get off on a tangent.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But this is the point. This is the lazy. So two things that have cost AP their power and the media their power. Homerism, actually three. Homerism. How about just bias in general? Bias in general and laziness. This vote to put Tennessee at 9 is laziness, because you're just putting Arizona State and Boise State ahead of Tennessee because they just went further in the college football playoff. By the way, there's an argument that even Penn State shouldn't be ahead of Tennessee. I get why you did it. They made it to the Final Four. But even then, like Dave, Penn State's ranked ahead of Georgia only because Penn State advanced to the semifinals and Georgia got out in the quarterfinals. But does anybody really believe that Penn State's better than Georgia?
Okay, I want to dig into that. So how would you rank them? Because the stair-step system, as I call it, is the dumbest way in the world. But on the flip side of that, you have more of a track record in the regular season than you do the playoffs. So you do have to take that into account. How would we rank the AP as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's #1 overall Ford dealer?
Hey Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Okay, I'll go ahead and give you my top 5, and then I'll give you where Tennessee should be ranked. Let's update the poll question. People agree with me. Tennessee finishing #9 in the AP poll is too high, 8%, too low, 23%, and 69% say that porridge is just right. Matt,
when did I become the Tennessee homer? It feels like being the same. They were way. No, I'm saying they're too low.
No, okay. Oh, Mike says Hooker doesn't think he's a Tennessee homer. Okay, well.
No, I'm saying like I'm.
No. I'm talking the message board. There are a lot of people that have hired me, Mike, that would disagree with you. Mark says AP lost. Okay, when they voted. Okay, I want to get to this point. Matt said at this point, I don't even know. Well, here's what I would have at the top 5. I think Mike is a Georgia fan, so maybe this will redeem me a bit. I think #9 is just fine. I think that's about where they should be when I look at it. If they were 7, it wouldn't make a big difference to me. It was somewhat important, I believe, that Tennessee had a top 10 finish. I thought they might slip into 12. So I think at the end of the day, goal accomplished, and I'm fine with that, and I'm happy if I'm Josh Heupel. Now, you may think they should be a little higher, but I think we're kind of splitting hairs. As long as you're in the top 10, you get to sit down in front of a kid in recruiting and say you're in the top 10. So here's how my top 5 would look. Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia. Then I get a little Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, and then I'm going to go Texas, Notre Dame. I would drop Notre Dame I wouldn't lock them in to number 2 just because they made the national championship game.
All right, here's mine. Ohio State. I'm not locking Notre Dame in at number 2 because they made the title game. I just did a rant on why you shouldn't do it based on titles. But they did beat Georgia to get to the title game.
Okay.
That's enough for me. So
But
Ohio State.
Okay, but are we weighing quarterback issues, injuries, that sort of thing?
Well, Georgia beat Texas with Gunnar Stockton, and that's the problem. So it's like, with that in mind, and Notre Dame kind of manhandled Georgia in that game. They didn't just beat them. They kind of manhandled them. So, I mean, again, people, look, these are not power rankings. You agree with me on that, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Because they're not power rankings, I got to put Notre Dame ahead of Georgia just by sheer value of beating them. So I'm going to go Ohio State, but I think I'm with you. I'm going to put Oregon second. I'll go Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Georgia, Texas. And then 6 to me is Penn State. 7 is Tennessee. 8 is Arizona State. 9 is Boise State. And by the way, Indiana should not be number 10. I'm sorry. Ole Miss should be number 10. They should be ahead of Indiana and SMU. There, sue me. I don't care that they didn't make the playoff.
You remember me saying that if Indiana made the playoff, that we were going to just shut the whole thing down?
Yep, I do.
Okay, we're not doing that. Sorry, I didn't think they'd make the playoff. I thought they'd eventually fall apart. Well, this leads me to this question. Let's take a look at another ranking. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay. This ranking is this. I used to think it was more important than the AP ranking. Now I'm not so sure. Let's look at the composite rankings for the 2025 recruiting class. Texas, number 1. Georgia, number 2. Ohio State, number 3. Alabama, number 4. Oregon, number 5. Auburn, 6. Texas A&M, 7. LSU, 8. Michigan, 9. Florida, 10. Tennessee, 11. Notre Dame, 12. Now, my question is not whether or not you agree with those rankings. That would require a ton of study. But my question is this even nearly as important as it was before NIL came along? In other words, do you just have to do like Tennessee, which I would have said would be treading water 10 years ago, because Tennessee only won when they were finishing in the top 3 under Philip Fulmer at a high level. So to me, this is fine. It's not treading water anymore. This is just being where you need to be, and then decide if you need to go out and supplement your roster with transfers or just cement your roster with paying current players more. So, Caleb, how important is recruiting rankings anymore? Because the SEC still looks like the dominant school.
It does. You know who's the bigger winner when you look at these recruiting rankings? You know who's the biggest winner of this top 10? Ready?
Yeah, tell me.
Auburn. Auburn's number 6 in the 2025 recruiting rankings. But Dave, they're number 4 in the 2025 transfer portal rankings. So the combination is the most important. Now, LSU's number 1 in transfer portal rankings and number 8 in recruiting. But I think I still value high school recruiting a little bit more than transfer portal recruiting when I think of your long-term success. But
not a little bit more. I mean, maybe a lot more. I mean, I don't think you can. I used to say I didn't think you could win a national championship if you were 10 or lower consistently in recruiting rankings. I've covered recruiting for 25 years, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Now I'm more along the lines of, as long as you're in the top 15 and you make some savvy moves in the portal or NIL and keeping people, I don't think you've got a problem. I think you're good to go.
I agree. Totally agree. So I think that this, I think staying afloat in recruiting matters the most in chemistry. There's so many other factors now, and it's a good thing long-term for college football because really opens up the parity of the sport. And let's hope that makes the playoff better in the future. I want to go ahead and transition if we can, because we're getting the question of where did Florida come from, funny enough, which leads to our take.
They came from the Jort show, or the Jort shop. Did you know, by the way, at the University of Florida, they have hair gel dispensers in all their men's restrooms?
Really?
No, that's not true, but it's funny.
I mean, I feel like Florida is like Jersey Shore meets redneck, and like that's how you get Florida, right?
It's a special sort of stupid in Gainesville. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not ripping the University of Florida. I'm sure it turns out some fantastic folks, but that area of the country is really goofy because it is a mix of redneck and Jersey Shore completely. You know what else is like that? Is West Virginia.
Oh, I know. I lived in Hagerstown in Western
Oh,
Maryland.
yeah, because
which
they
is
get a
next to
ton
West
of people from the Northeast. It's like you're at a school for Italians only or something.
West Virginia is like hillbilly meets meets East Coast. It's really odd how that works.
Okay,
but,
let's get back to Florida. Florida was like 35 and 20
yeah,
a few months ago. What's happened?
All right, so this is why this is relevant. So I wanted to get to our final topic and talk with Dave on this. Former Tennessee football quarterback Harrison Bailey, who was the crown jewel of Jeremy Pruitt's 2020 recruiting class when we all thought Jeremy Pruitt was building a future powerhouse in Knoxville, is still in college, guys. And he's now transferring.
He's 38 years old.
Yes, as he enters his 6th season of college football, is transferring to the Florida Gators. Harrison Bailey was in the 2020 class, was at Tennessee in 2020 and 2021. Then he transferred to UNLV, where he was a backup in 2022. Then he transferred to Louisville in 2023, where he was in 2023 and 2024. He just finished the Sun Bowl. He was just MVP of the Sun Bowl in his first ever start at Louisville when Louisville beat Washington. And he was basically the favorite to start next year at Louisville because the other quarterback's gone. Then out of the blue, he transfers for his final year of eligibility to go to Florida, where DJ Lagway is already locked in as the starter. Now, I'm going to ask Dave. Dave's covered recruiting in the past. I know you haven't covered the transfer portal as much, but to me, this makes no sense for either party. Harrison Bailey transferring out of a place where he's guaranteed as the starter to be a backup or at the very best compete for a starting job for his final year of eligibility, that makes no sense unless there's a bunch of NIL money thrown at him to do it. But Florida throwing him a bunch of NIL money when they already have a quarterback also makes no sense. So, Dave, I'm at a total loss for words why Harrison Bailey transferred to Florida.
Okay, I'm going to disagree. I think that that Florida is doing something that's very smart because I don't believe in DJ Lagway. I kind of believe in him, but I'm not 100% on board. Let me ask you this. Who do you feel better about in 2025? Nico or Harrison Bailey? I'm sorry, or DJ Lagway?
DJ Lagway.
Oh, okay. That surprised me.
I'm sorry. Nico. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said DJ Lagway.
That's fine. Okay, so we agree on that. So I think with Harrison Bailey, this is a two-pronged decision. I think one, he thinks he can win the starting job. Okay, which, he's now 6'5", 230, and I happen to watch him play. I think he's pretty good. I think Tennessee should have thought twice about getting rid of him. Nevertheless, and I think he's also thinking I might not be an NFL guy. So if they're going to throw me $100,000 more than Louisville, I should make the move. And $100,000 isn't a lot of money to Florida, and they can probably do that, but it's a lot of money to Harrison Bailey. And as for Florida, I think you build depth and you tell DJ Lagway that this isn't just your job. I actually like this move a lot more than you. I thought a lot about it after our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. I think this stocks Florida's roster. Now, I would not take it from another spot. I wouldn't turn down a 5-star cornerback to get Harrison Bailey, and I hope they didn't do that for their sake. But I like this move on both sides.
Where is Florida now, though? Because we're talking about the program 2 years ago that opened up the NIL checkbook for Jaden Rashada and then couldn't pay him, so he left. Now we're talking about a school, Dave, that has the money. A school 2 years ago that lost a player because they couldn't pay him what they promised. And now we're talking about a school that can afford to outbid on NIL money for a second option when they still have other spots to upgrade.
But you're competing for a guy that's pretty good at a school that's not well funded. I don't think they doled out Nico money to get him.
Okay, but
this is the I mean, this is probably the equivalent of.
You don't think it was at the expense of some player though, somewhere, a starter somewhere else? You think it was at the expense of a potential starter?
We're coming to the end, the end of the, players are enrolling, kids are enrolling right now. So, once you're enrolled, I guess you could transfer. I don't know hell, it's the whole rules have changed, but I mean, guys are enrolling. So I think schools are finding that, hey, I got a little bit of cash left over. How can I make my roster better with somebody that's very approachable? And I'm not so sure that Harrison Bailey can't beat DJ Lagway out for the job. You to me don't even think that's a possibility. So that's probably why, right? Is that why?
No, look, DJ Lagway wasn't great last year based on numbers. I mean, he threw for 2,000 yards, had 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But at the same time, the only thing that hits me with this is DJ Lagway, how personal would you take this? I mean, I think you and I both agree, Dave, that like the biggest reason for Florida's turnaround late in the year was because they went full on with DJ Lagway after Graham Mertz got hurt.
Right.
And how personal do you take it with DJ Lagway to say, I was better than Graham Mertz the whole time. You never believed in me. And now you're bringing in another guy to compete with me after I just proved to you that I'm the guy. I mean, this is... he should feel like how Tom Brady should feel about Michigan during the Lloyd Carr days, when Lloyd Carr never gave Tom Brady the fair shot to be the full-time starter the way he should have. And I don't know, something is that. So even if you're Florida in that, don't you feel a little like you're undercutting DJ Lagway to bring in a guy who's out of eligibility? Make no mistake on this. Harrison Bailey's coming to win the job at Florida. He's not coming to be a backup. And DJ Lagway just got Florida to an 8-win season in the most difficult schedule arguably in history, with multiple top 25 wins, knocking Ole Miss out of the college football playoff. I mean, something about this one, that the real story, Dave, is I think Florida's NIL is starting to get scary good if what you're saying is true. I think it's likely. I think you're right. The only thing I can think of is they ponied up NIL money that allowed Harrison Bailey to take it. But then I start to think, well, they may have done that, but if they're doing that, their NIL's much more in-house than it was 2 years ago.
Okay, I'm always open-minded, and there are times that I support your point, even though I may disagree with it. So where do you think DJ Lagway and quarterback rating fell nationally? Not SEC, nationally in quarterback rating. By the way, Jackson Dart was number 1.
I don't even think he was top 60.
You sure? You can go a little higher.
How about top 100?
No. The other way.
Oh, no, I think he was outside of the top 60 nationally.
Higher. I'm going to let you change it.
Okay, top 40?
Keep going.
Top 20?
Keep going.
Top 10?
On the money.
DJ Lagway had the 10th best quarterback rating nationally.
Yes.
The guy who completed 59.9% of his passes and had 12 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
This stuff happens when you cover one team. I'm going to warn you, because we don't get an opportunity to see 60 minutes of DJ Lagway, thank goodness, each and every week. But that's twice during this program that you flipped me, and I actually gave you the power to do it. Yeah, number 10. I started scanning around 30 or 40, thinking I would find him there. Do you want to, excuse me, do you want to guess where Nico ranks?
Quarterback rating wise?
Yes.
Think about this for a minute. I'll go 26.
He is actually 32.
Okay.
And I'm having trouble finding Harrison Bailey in the. I know
Harrison Bailey wouldn't have thrown enough stats.
Okay.
I mean, because he only started one game last year, and that was the Sun Bowl game.
Okay. Well, it had to be about money. It had to be about money and the opportunity to start. And it stuns me that DJ Lagway is number 10. That, I mean, in retrospect, that's bizarro. Nico is 32, right?
Yeah, it stuns me that he would. I mean, it really stuns me that DJ Lagway would accept this and not accept being totally disrespected on this after what he did with Florida even more. Now, I'm looking it up more. Here's why DJ Lagway's stats are so high. His yards per attempt, Dave, are incredible. He averaged 10 yards an attempt, which I think yards per attempt is more important than completion percentage, don't you? Yards per pass attempt.
Not really, because I think it speaks to your receiver's big play ability. I'd rather have
adjusted yards, air yards per pass attempt. How many yards per an attempt through the air?
Well, but that's not a factor in this.
No, that's true. You're right. But
I mean, so I would I would take completion percentage over really anything. I think that that's being able to put it. It's why I'm still pro Nico, is because I think he can put it like through a.
Oh, he can put it through anywhere. Yeah, Nico would probably every single time win that Dr. Pepper FCC challenge if he needed to.
By the way, the next person, and they all do it now, that uses the two-hand basketball push should be beaten with a stick at midfield.
That's so right.
That's not football. I know it's easier, but it's not football. It
reminds me
of dad blame basketball.
It reminds me of when Derrick Rose was trying to hit a free throw to ice that national title game that Memphis choked away the Tigers all those years ago, when he forced it up because he was so nervous at that moment.
What if the first guy that did that, if like the SEC commissioner Greg Sankey just went out and clubbed him in the back of the leg and said, "That's not happening here, partner." That's what I would be a fan of. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney, as we broadcast live from the fantastic Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's #1 Ford dealer. And let me tell you something, if I may, about what's coming up on the show. So tomorrow we'll have Jimmy Imes, who is fantastically awesome. We'll have Will West coming up on Friday. We'll also have Tony Jones coming up this week to give us some basketball analysis, plus visiting with a former Tennessee linebacker that might be a part of what we do here. So we'll tell you more about that as we move forward. But a lot of big things on the program that we are very excited about. Want to thank our friends Joe Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. It is joenewbertcollision.com, joenewbertcollision.com. Also want to thank our friends at Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. If we can drop that link in there, pinkivhydration.com. And with a patch, you'll be all set. Thank our friends at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures. So much more. Follow on Facebook, Sports Treasures TN, and the UPS store, Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses. Wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. We'll see at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I expect you here. And I want to send out, if I may, no, it's not Gerard Mayo. I think he's got a career to tend to right now. By the way, he got the raw deal from the Patriots, by the way.
Totally raw deal.
Yeah. All right. So your boy Zeus Z, great name, says, Dave and Caleb, I called in sick today. Well, Caleb and I can understand that. We both probably been close to calling in sick. I've had the flu. Caleb's had his smoker's cough. And you guys are really getting me through it. Just want to say I appreciate you guys. You got a lifelong viewer. Keep up the good work. Man, that's super nice. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Have a fantastic day, everyone. This